Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics on Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. You know what? Listen, it's all about coronavirus. It's all about what's going to happen to our economy. It's all about much, and it's something we have to be cognizant of. Let me tell you something, folks. Let me tell you, this morning I got up and the wife had the ABC program on, what is it called? The Good Morning America on. And they started to talk about people who were staying home to work. And they gave about 3 or 4 different families. And you saw a family who is in their home with a table that's a station for the mother working, another station for the father working, and a station for where the kids are going to be learning at home. And they showed several different families. And you know, it was all happy, we're off, and, because of the way things are, the coronavirus is creating these issues, so we are at home. And I looked at her and I said, you know what is so interesting? It is so amazing that the mainstream media, they are so myopic. They simply see things through their own eyes, their own experience, and there is little that they do to empathize with really what is occurring in America today. This is a catastrophe for working Americans, for the working class. Now, the people who work in media, the people who work for corporations as executives that can go home with their laptops, they have fast internet, they can connect through the VPN of their networks and the computer systems, they're fine. Those of us that are doing this, media, those of us that are in front of a camera, behind a speaker or behind a mic, we are going to be fine with the change in working conditions. You know, we can still have people bring food to us from the restaurants. All those things work fine for a certain percentage of the population that's doing just fine. But most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, or they're a few paychecks away from the poorhouse, or they're a few paychecks away for being in dire straits. And I'll tell you what I have not seen. I have not seen reporters, even if they want to go out there with N95 masks on, going out in mass to where the people are really suffering in silence. You know, here in Kingwood, Texas, in Humble, the town next to it, the schools are having to, because a lot of the kids get their first meal, their only meal, their largest meal at school. The schools in closing, because all the schools around here are closed, they are realizing the necessity to have to provide food for people who otherwise wouldn't eat. And these are the things that are happening. Our local station, you know, they had one or two stories about the lines that are forming to get these people who would normally have been in school fed. But then I look at the national story, and I hear the president talking about having to help the airlines, having to help the fracking industry. By the way, the fracking industry didn't go into a tailspin because of coronavirus. It went into a tailspin because his friend, Brother Putin, decided to put the clamp down on oil prices by going into an oil price war with Saudi Arabia. And in doing so, the price of oil fell, And fracking in a lot of places makes sense no more. Because a lot of these guys have been fracking on a lot of borrowed money with the expectation that oil prices would be high, and when they're high, they will be ready to sock it to you. Well, you know, Vladimir Putin, Trump's buddies, sock it to him. But going back to the subject at hand and the people that are suffering, right? The first group of people that should be supported at this point in time are all those hourly workers that are asked to stay home. They need a check yesterday. And you say, why are you going to give them free money? They are staying home. They are not serving because of a national emergency. A national emergency that first hits them. To say I want to help the airlines corporations, to say I want to help the fracking industry, to say I want to help any corporation, an entity that is within itself. Remember, in America, a corporation is a human being, so we want to defer billions to that one human being, that corporation. Remember, Citizens United, and remember, I forgot the name of the rule that made a corporation a living thing. A corporation, you know that thing that corporations are people? Yeah, corporations are treated legally as people. So we should be all Americans that are sitting down at home right now. You should be flooding all your representatives, your senators, your congress people now and telling them no to corporations until we are made whole. After 2008, we had a stimulus that was too small. We had a stimulus that talked about tax cuts. Of course, tax cuts only work for people who are working at that point in time and who make enough money to have been paid enough taxes to make a difference anyway. There are a lot of people that are just working for the pay that they have, and they need the pay that they have to just make ends meet. Who talks for those people? Who speaks on those people's issues? Too many people in America suffer in silence and are too quiet and acquiesce to the masters, and we have to empower ourselves and stop. Today I heard in Humboldt, Texas, a friend of mine, a Republican who I disagree with 99% of the times, because he's one of the Republicans that's also a libertarian and a strong one. And he put a message out there about the teachers that 10 years ago, he had already had forward thinking in having online courses, and now the overpaid superintendent that we went and hired for this particular district, who also had other interests that they were allowed to pursue and make a lot more money than the lot of money that they're given, didn't have the forward thought process to really say, I am in Houston, a place where a lot of disasters happen, and coronavirus is a disaster as well. I should be ready for my students. If they cannot be in class, how are we going to handle things otherwise? But just now they're scrambling the district. The district is off until April 10, and they're scrambling. How are we going to keep these kids educated, right? And he puts a comment in there saying, this should have been thought of long ago. The amount of teachers that I saw come out there and say, oh, she's doing a good job. Oh, she's a wonderful person. Come on. We allow incompetence to pay for too long. We allow too many people to take advantage of us. We look at leadership as if they are divine. As a leader, you should want critique. As a leader, you should want criticism. As a leader, it makes you better. But, so after he puts the comments in there, oh, she's a good leader. She's trying her best to get things going. We're scrambling now. A good leader would not have had to scramble. A good leader knows that you prepare for contingencies. In our little company here, we prepared for contingency to get on air many times. There are times when the network is done, and this little thing called a cell phone has always created some standby capacity. Standby capacity that says, if this doesn't work, we can transmit at a low throughput to do other things. My friends, It is time for us to demand. It is time for us to start understanding that we have to take care of ourselves, and in taking care of ourselves, it means electing leaders who support policies that are conducive to make the masses, middle class and poor America, upwardly mobile, the ability to earn, the ability to save, the ability to build wealth, the ability to do stuff. Now, here's how I want to start the program, because what I did is I have a compilation of some interesting outtakes that I've done in other programs that I want to bring to you, because I think they need to have that exposure and people need to understand these particular issues. The first part of the program, what I want to talk about is the lack of leadership from the top, from Donald Trump himself. I want you to listen here. I want you to listen here to all the ways Trump spoke about the coronavirus that likely caused people to die because they didn't take it initially as seriously as they should. I did a little montage. Check this out.
This is their new hoax.
We're finding very little problem. Now, you treat this like a flu.
This is their new hoax.
It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away.
This is their new hoax.
It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
This is their new hoax.
Anybody that needs a test gets a test.
This is their new hoax.
I was honored to see that the stock market, you were mostly there with us, set a record in a short period of time, over a 45-minute period.
This is their new hoax.
We walked back. I said, so how did that work out? They said, sir, you just set a new record in the history of the stock market.
This is their new hoax.
Those great companies that were there, they couldn't have been too unhappy either when you think about it, because they're all very big publicly listed companies.
This is their new hoax.
Some of the doctors say it will wash through, it will flow through.
This is their new hoax.
Okay, now here's the other part. Trump now starts to get a little bit more serious about coronavirus. And what did he do? He shows where his interests really lie. All he could talk about. Yesterday, the stock market went up in 45 minutes by a record. It never went up that fast in 45 minutes. Well, good for you, Trump. But guess what happened the day after? You lost 3,000 points. Or yesterday, you lost 3,000 points. And so far as I speak, you aren't doing so well. You're not making all this stuff back up. So, shameful. Check out how he talks now about the coronavirus and what it is that makes him happy. And who he really is concerned about. Oh, corporations, of course. Check this out.
We also reached an agreement yesterday on a new legislative package that will provide strong support for American families and communities in dealing with the coronavirus. So it was done very, very bipartisan. I want to thank Secretary of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, who did a fantastic job and worked with Nancy Pelosi. Right. A lot of provisions in the bill, which they're going to be discussing with you today. And they're tremendous provisions, so that's something that we should talk about. I was honored to see that the stock market, you were mostly there with us, set a record in a short period of time, over a 45-minute period, that we had the press conference yesterday in the Rose Garden. That was a record, an all-time record. I think we should do one of them every day, perhaps. How about 5 times a day? We'll do one 5 times a day. But that was something to watch, and I had no idea. We walked back. I said, so how did that work out? They said, sir, you just set a new record in the history of the stock market. So that was pretty good. And those great companies that were there, they couldn't have been too unhappy either when you think about it, because they're all very big publicly listed companies.
It is always wonderful to see when somebody on the side of the president, I shouldn't say on the side of the president, because David Brooks have been really pointing out the deficiencies of this president for a very long time. But check out what he had to say, because I think it's prescient. I think it is essential that people start to acknowledge the president in this regards. Check out what David Brooks had to say. Here's how he described Donald Trump.
You know, David Brooks, I want to, this was after the Wednesday address. Noah Rothman in commentary wrote, there's no excuse for the kind of carelessness in a prepared address to the nation, much less one given amid emergency circumstances. The cumulative effect of these errors and compromise palliative measures was to leave the nation less confident than it was before Trump spoke. The president might have been better off keeping quiet. But the point is, it does seem as if that lack of confidence, and you start to see it, it's spreading with different people on how to deal with this crisis.
Well, we see it with every federal official. None of them can get out in front of President Trump, so they all have to hang back. I had a friend, somebody I care about deeply, call me last night saying he had a fever. And I had no idea what to tell him, like take Motrin, go to Netflix. It was very unnerving. And then your next instinct is, oh, I'm going to drive up and see him, but I can't do that either. Mm-hmm. And so this goes against human nature, that we can't really care about our loved ones. And I think it does flow from the top. And we have a president who doesn't feel the emotions of other people. And therefore, he can't read the country. 6 months ago, he can't say, wow, people are really hurting out there. People are afraid out there. I've got to act. I've got to act. He lacks that sense. And so he's not really seeing the country. He's reading what people think about him, which is all he sees. And therefore, all his reactions are late and deadened.
Exactly right. He has no feelings, no care for what's truth, no care for what ails us, no care for what's important. This MSNBC host particular statement at the end of an interview that shows how backward our system is and how frustrated she seemed to be as one that is seeing it in her interviews on the front line.
Who's the person in charge that would be able to, Dr. Morse, to take away that red tape? Is it the CDC director? Is it Vice President Pence, who's now the head of the coronavirus task force? Is it the president?
I think basically it needs to be the president. And what I would say is there's sort of two issues that come into play here. One is the red tape, which is substantial. Again, there's nothing magic about the test. Many of us have tests that work beautifully. Yeah. It's the red tape, but the other side is the cost. Unfortunately, our medical system is driven by cost and cost accounting. What has already been mentioned. The administrators say, hey, who's going to pay for that? Yeah. We're actually providing free tests here at University of Florida because it is so complicated to figure out who's going to pay. But that's not sustainable. There has to be a system to pay. And the reality is that the commercial companies have got beautiful giant machines that can run thousands of tests a day. But they are going very slowly because it is unclear who's going to pay for it, what the payment mechanisms are. And so the bureaucracy initially discouraged tests from being put online, but now the problems are who's going to pay for it. And until there is a clear pathway, administrators say, well, show me something in writing that says I'm going to get paid if you do this test for this patient.
Regardless of how you feel about it, that is a symptom of a privatized healthcare system. That right there, frustrating.
I found that prescient. That is a result of a privatized healthcare system. And then she puts her personal feeling in there. Frustrating. Frustrating it is. You know, and these things have material effects on our economy. It has material effects on much. Now that we have moved from incompetence in government, I want to show you what competence look like. Now, I am not a fan of Andrew Cuomo. I think he's a status quo centrist type of governor. I mean, I don't like what they've done with the working families party in New York. But I mean, when it comes to being an executive, when it comes to talking about reality-based handling of a situation like this, I think he's doing a darn good job. And I want you to take a listen to how he responded to it.
You only have 53,000 hospital beds. You only have 3,000 ICU beds. Why? Because our health system is basically a private system. They don't build capacity that they don't need. They don't build extra ICU beds just in case. An intensive care bed is very expensive. They don't build a wing of ICU beds that sit vacant for 10 years on the off chance that there's going to be a public health emergency and you'll need the beds. They don't. It's not economic. It's not their business model. So we don't have them. We have the capacity that people use day in and day out. And that's not just New York, that's every state in the United States. You now have this influx, you can't handle it. You overwhelm the hospitals. You have people on gurneys in hallways. That is what is going to happen now if we do nothing. We know what lies ahead. Look at the numbers from China, South Korea, and Italy. You don't have to guess. Compare those numbers to our hospital capacity, and it's still math at the end of the day. And it doesn't work. The federal government must do this.
Now, continuing about what good leadership looks like. Katie Porter, one of the 5 young women I think are the stars of our Congress today, and that I wish more in Congress would get their backbones, because these women are our future. I want you to listen to this outtake. When you have effective leaders, that communicate well and care about your social well-being, care about the social well-being of their country, it is so important. It forces in clear view what must be done. So let's check out Katie Porter in action. Because, by the way, who brought that up? The Squad Plus One. Here it is for you, my brother.
Dr. Kadlec, for someone without insurance, do you know the out-of-pocket cost of a complete blood count test?
No, ma'am, not immediately.
Do you have a ballpark?
With a copay, ma'am?
No, the out-of-pocket, just the typical cost.
I do not, ma'am.
Okay, a CBC typically costs about $36. What about the out-of-pocket cost for a complete metabolic panel?
Ma'am, I'd have to pass on that as well.
You have any idea? You want to take a ballpark?
I would say $75.
Okay, $58.
Getting closer.
How about flu A? The flu A test.
Okay, ma'am, again, I would
No.
take a guess at about maybe 50.
43. Flu, this is like the Price is Right. Flu B,
Too high again. I would probably say 44.
that's good. How about the cost of an ER visit for someone identified as high severity and threat?
I'm sorry, ma'am, what was the question again?
How about the cost of an ER visit for somebody identified as having high severity or high threat?
High severity, but ma'am, that's probably about $3,000 to $5,000.
Okay, that is $1,151. This all totals up to $1,331. That's assuming they aren't kept in isolation. Isolation can add up for one family already, $4,000. And fear of these costs are going to keep people from being tested, from getting the care they need, and from keeping their communities safe. We live in a world where 40% of Americans cannot even afford a $400 unexpected expense. We live in a world where 33% of Americans put off medical treatment last year. And we have a $1,331 expense, conservatively, just for testing for the coronavirus. Dr. Redfield, do you want to know who has the coronavirus and who doesn't?
Yes.
Not just rich people, but everybody who might have the virus?
All of America.
Dr. Redfield, are you familiar with 42 CFR 71.30, excuse me? 42 CFR 71.30. The Code of Federal Regulations that applies to the CDC. 42 CFR 71.30.
I think if you could frame what it talks about, that would help me. I
Okay.
don't relate.
Dr. Redfield, I'm pretty well known as a questioner on the Hill for not tipping my hand. I literally communicated to your office last night and received confirmation that I was going to be asking you about 42 CFR 71.30. This provides the director may authorize payment for the care and treatment of individuals subject to medical exam, quarantine, isolation, and conditional release.
That I know about, and my office did tell me that. I just didn't know the numbers, ma'am. That's Congresswoman.
Great, so you're familiar. Dr. Redfield, will you commit to the CDC right now using that existing authority to pay for diagnostic testing free to every American regardless of insurance?
Well, I can say that we're going to do everything to make sure everybody can get the care they need.
Reclaiming my time. Dr. Redfield, you have the existing authority. Will you commit right now to using the authority that you have vested in you under law that provides in a public health emergency for testing, treatment, exam, isolation without cost? Yes or no?
What I'm going to say is I'm going to review it in detail with
No,
CDC and the
I'm
department.
reclaiming my time. Dr. Redfield, respectfully, I wrote you this letter along with my colleagues, Rosa DeLaura and Lauren Underwood, Congressman Underwood and Congressman DeLaura. We wrote you this letter 1 week ago. We quoted that existing authority to you, and we laid out this problem. We asked for a response yesterday. The deadline and the time for delay has passed. Will you commit to invoking your existing authority under 42 CFR 71.30 to provide for coronavirus testing for every American regardless of insurance coverage?
What I was trying to say is that CDC is working with HHS now to see how we operationalize that.
Dr. Redfield, I hope that that answer weighs heavily on you, because it is going to weigh very heavily on me and on every American family.
Our intent is to make sure every American gets the care and treatment they need at this time of this major epidemic, and I'm currently working with HHS to see how to best operationalize it.
Dr. Redfield, you don't need to do any work to operationalize. You need to make a commitment to the American people so they come in to get tested. You can operationalize the payment structure tomorrow.
I think you're an excellent questioner, so my answer is yes.
Excellent. Everybody in America hear that. You are eligible to go get tested for coronavirus and have that covered regardless of insurance. Please, if you believe you have the illness, follow precautions. Call first. Do everything the CDC and Dr. Fauci, God bless you, for guiding Americans in this time. But do not let a lack of insurance worsen this crisis.
And I would just like to echo what you said. It's a public health, a very important public health, that those individuals that are in the shadows can get the health care that they need during the time of us responding to this outbreak.
Okay, I want to tell you first of all why that was important. That is what a legislator is supposed to do. That is what an advocate is supposed to do. Now, that he is from the executive, the CDC. Now think about it. He has the authority to go ahead and ensure that every American is tested. This is national security, national health. All of that is a statement of fact. He has the authority. Why would he not want to use the authority? Because he has a president that may want to have friends profit from having to charge for this product. And of course, if the taxpayers are going to pay for it, they cannot swindle you as much as if they can take you for what you're worth. So what she wanted, a legislator advocating for you, is to say, I want to ensure and tell you that every American knows if they feel they are a danger, they are getting sick to society, that they can come and get a test. Your government, your institutions will take care to make sure this country is taken care of, is safe. Katie Porter, I love that woman. That is a progressive legislator that won in Orange County in a red district without compromising her particular values. Don't know where she stands on Medicare for all, but in this case, I don't care. You know why? Because she did her job. We don't have to be absolutists. She did her job. As I wrote the program today, came back from Costco and I came here and said, I got to start thinking about what am I going to, I knew what the subject was going to be. I knew what I was going to talk about. But when I just brought up Common Dreams and saw that tweet, it was like, baby, that is it. And if you guys are watching Katie Porter or anybody else, you guys go ahead and make sure the rest of America sees Katie Porter in action as a legislator. I've seen her do that so many times. Both her and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and all of them. What I love is they are fearless. They're not like those guys. Those guys go out there and they acquiesce to the corporatocracy. They acquiesce to knowing, okay, if I rub your back, you may give me a job as a lobbyist. You may give me a job as something. These women are exceptional. Let's call their names again. Katie Porter, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley. Those are our young, national, progressive, American heroes. Let's not forget that. That is our future. I think she's 45 or so, somewhere around there is Katie Porter. But man, I want Katie Porter on my side. Man, I love that woman. One of the things that the coronavirus has done is the coronavirus has exposed some flaws. To put it specifically, Governor Andrew Cuomo alluded to it when he talks about the reasons private corporations can't do what they do correctly in the healthcare system. I want you to listen to Coronavirus exposes the failure of efficient, unfettered capitalism. This is not an attack on privacy. This is not an attack on saying, hey guys, you want to have your own company? Go out there and have it. You want to invent something? Go out there and invent it. What this is to say is that our current economy prevents you, first of all, from being able to do that unless the master tells you you can. I want to tell you that this current economy puts you in danger from doing all of that. Let's get started on how this stuff works. Let's use the coronavirus as an example. The coronavirus has been out there for a very, very long time. Okay, it came to the United States, and as it came to the United States, the executive ignored it. They wanted it to just go away. Why did they want it to just go away? Because they understood that in a very efficient, unfettered capitalist society, the first bit of disruption, thank you very much, Patricia De Galani, she's 46. The first disruption in the chain, the cards come tumbling down. Let's go ahead and start in North Carolina and all these places, many of them that love to vote against their own interests. When we lost the factories because we could ship our production at a much lighter cost to China, to Vietnam, to the Philippines. We could ship our productivity, we could ship all our manufacturing to these places, right? That is what we did. The capitalist tenet is the maximization of profits for the shareholders. So therefore, the worker, the person who is bringing in that value is too heavy, too expensive. So we constantly try to find cheaper, more efficiency. So we manufacture in China. What happens when you have centralization of manufacture? What happens is something that's happening, and the coronavirus exposed it. A lot of our medicines now are made in China. A lot of our products are made in China. A lot of our parts are made in China. So therefore, China gets a pandemic that could easily have been localized. A localized pandemic that expanded. 786 on the phone, I'll be coming to you next. Okay? So what happens now? Remember, we are an efficient capitalist society. Efficient. Efficient because we just have, instead of having production all over the world and where we can bring all these things together in different places, and instead of manufacturing cars here, there, and manufacturing medicine all over the place, We centralize all these different manufacturing stations, right? Efficiency, maximization of profit for the shareholders. And we do it for cheap. But Corona did something bad. Corona hit a place where manufacturing occurs. Corona started to spread through the system. And it shuts down the supply chain. You know, another concept of very efficient capitalism is just-in-time inventory, right? Just-in-time, JIT. So what we do is as we need something, we manufacture. We don't keep. In the old days, business people would go ahead and they'll have their inventory in stores, in warehouses all over. You know, it's like your water system in your city, right? If you go around your city, you see a lot of these big water tanks, right? And they're up in the air, and they do two things. They keep pressure in different lines in your system, so you don't have to have a high pressure line coming in. You have supply. It's in an electrical system, it would be a inductor capacitor transmission system, right? But in a water system, you get all your water stores to keep the pipes filled at all places, but also to keep a reserve. What that reserve says is, if you remember, if those of you who live in Houston, Texas, we had a huge disruption. We had a pipe that is 8 feet wide, which supplied half of Houston. That pipe busted. And in as much as a lot of people didn't have a lot of water pressure for a while, they were able to cut some lines, close some lines, and because they had all that water storage in these tanks around the country, around the city, in these tall pipes that gave pressure, the system could still run for some time, even as they fixed that pipe. You know, that is what you call, you know, keeping into account. That is how a good business operates, right? But no, remember, there's the financial sector and the intelligence sector. The intelligence sector being the doctors, the engineers, the scientists, all these guys who know things. They don't really execute the big part of the financial sector. So the capitalist portion of the system is a whole bunch of people who know nothing about hardly anything. So they go ahead and they say, hey, guess what? If we don't have all that inventory, we can make more money. If we don't pay all those people what they're really worth, hey, we can make more money. And that's all they think about. That's all they think about. They care nothing. That's capitalism. They care nothing about humanity. They care nothing about what works. They care nothing about you. It's just about, how do I make more money? So every question that they ask first, if we do this, what impact does it have on me as a person making money? No humanity, no civility, no morality. That's the financial sector. That's what it has become. You remember you had the home banker, the banker who works in the community. He was there to make a little profit from managing your loans and making sure there's liquidity in the market. That used to be how it is. But as we got investment bankers and all that kind of stuff, what then happened is they created a system that was backed up by such a thin layer of security that a coronavirus pandemic can bring it all down. And if you doubt it, the stock market has lost, 10,000 points? And guess what? It first of all shows that the stock market is nothing more than a gambling engine, first of all, because it's based on nothing. It is based on whatever people think they can get for whatever. The stock market is and that's what I tell you, capitalism is really a failure, right? The stock market is an imaginary thing. A lot of people make a lot of money for knowing nothing, just knowing how to invest and move things around. And when we understand that, we start to see why we are worthy, why we should never allow folks to say we are not going to tax wealth, that somehow Bill Gates and all these wealthy people earned that. They did not. You did. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, how's it going? I think I called. I think you might have ended your show.
Yeah, but
I was listening to you earlier.
No problem. This is I think you called right as we were ending the show. You want to add something that I can put at the end of the show?
Well, perhaps not. Perhaps this will be better, being that because I really wanted to talk to you anyway. Like I'm a big supporter. Name's Julius. Big supporter of what you're doing. Big supporter of the efforts. I've donated to you before. You might have seen Lived It. You might have seen it a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you. I
Big time
do
supporter,
appreciate
but
it. What's your name, sir?
Julius.
Look, I appreciate you, my friend. I really do.
The progressive efforts, like how we've been moving along for, a few years going forward. I'm just thinking, would it make sense for us to latch on to certain issues even more so than certain candidates? I understand it's an election year, the most crucial year in the nation's history. I get it. But regardless, we're going to all vote blue no matter who, regardless. But what I'm saying is for progressives, for those of us who we embody what the Statue of Liberty stands for more than Democrat or Republican. For us, shouldn't we find certain issues like ready to mind would be something like gerrymandering? I was listening to what you said about Appalachia and how your daughter, and I've been there too when I was a kid. I'm in Queens, New York, but I've been out there, Southern Ohio, when I was a kid.
Right.
And the poverty is almost like a third world. You don't believe you're in North America. But something like gerrymandering heavily affects them too.
Right.
Just like for those of us that are Latino, Moreno, Italiano, they cut us up all the time. If progressives start attacking an issue like gerrymandering, which is a vestige of slavery, then how are they going to make the argument in 2-3 years' times that, they're all crazy or they're all far leftists or they're all socialists if we're the only ones fighting the fight that the original founders of the Republic fought?
Sir, first of all, I want to tell you that that idea is great. Believe it or not, is something that we have discussed before. If you notice, one of the pet peeve of politics done right is, in fact, Medicare for all. And that is one of the particular issues that we take on strongly. And again, I think a lot of people are going to see that as the coronavirus gets more prevalent, and it's like a lot of people not seeking help because of many reasons. Let's Medicare for all and family leave, all of those things tie in together, right? And I think the coronavirus is going to bring that out in a lot of different ways. One, you get more transmission if people are scared to go to the doctor. Two, a lot of people are not going to say they're sick because they cannot afford not to go to work because they're poor, which means, again, if you have a system that doesn't have a strong social safety net, you're going to get a lot of sick people going to work. So I think the coronavirus is something that we should use as progressives, yourself, myself, and all others, as why it is that we must have a good social safety net to make sure that people have that to which they can hold on to when things don't go their way.
I would agree.
So I agree with you 100%, sir. And, during the live show, I'm still taping, so this is something that I will put out there on air as well, because your thoughts, what you've just said, is powerful. And I think the more we say this, we realize that it's not about party. Now, I've always called myself a progressive before I call myself a Democrat or a Republican or anything else. And right now, the progressives can move within the Democratic Party. They can't move, in my opinion, in the Republican Party. And I think based on the way you're speaking, both of us are in the Democratic Party because that is where progressive values can move forward.
Of course. But, I just feel like we're always going to get pigeonholed unless we start grabbing onto issues, because issues are the only thing that we can control.
Yes.
We'd love to believe that our candidates are righteous and moral, but whether due to their own efforts or not, when they get in office, they're suddenly swamped with lobbyists and interests that are not the interests that got them elected. So I just feel like if a small contingent of us sort of take issues instead of candidates and make the issues things that we owned as a caucus or whatever, I think that is the best path going forward. Because then when you think of those issues, you think of us, and it makes it where people can't define us in the future.
I agree with you 100%. And again, thank you for bringing that to the attention again.
Indeed.
And please call into the show earlier so we can get that voice and those comments online, because I'm going to put this online, but I mean, other people need to hear other people say what you've just said. So I really do appreciate that, sir.
Big up respect, brother. Big up respect.
Great.
Man.
You have a wonderful day, my friend. Great talking to you. Okay.
Likewise. Take care,
buddy. This morning I had a discussion with my wife. Right. I looked at her. She said, "Who are you voting for in the Democratic Party, or rather this November?" And I said, I really, really want Bernie Sanders to win. Secondly, I wanted maybe Elizabeth Warren. Thirdly, I wanted maybe Andrew Yang to win, but it seems like it's going to be Joe Biden. And she said, "So who are you going to vote for?" And I said, "I'm going to vote for Joe Biden." And I said, because again, Bernie Sanders is a big boy. Yes, the corporatocracy and the DNC were instrumental in propelling Biden. But we as progressives should have known that is coming, and we should have been more aggressive. I wrote that on Daily Kos last night, and I said we should have gone for the jugular, because that's what Americans understand, the jugular. We should have gone for the jugular and really hit all those centrists up for the evil that they represent for the American body politic, with a smile, of course. We didn't do it right. We played safe. We played nice. We didn't go out and say, if you are supporting anything other than Medicare for all, you're supporting voluntary manslaughter. You are saying it is okay. If you go out there and articulate, we cannot afford Medicare for all, you are saying it is okay for us to allow other people to die. That is what you're saying. If we can't afford it, it means we are okay to have other people die. We can't afford it. Billionaires continue to accumulate all our wealth, but we can't afford to really heal or provide health care for the least of us all. It means what we're saying is it's okay for us to have an X number of people die because we don't want to tax rich people. That's all it means. And if you're a centrist and you're saying that, you're saying it is okay for me. Now, when you say, well, so then why are you going to vote for Biden? Well, I am not leaving the progressive movement. I'm staying with the progressive movement. So I told my wife, yeah, I'm voting for Biden. She said, but the way you talk, what about all those young people that listen to you, that they're going to throw their arms up and say, well, I'm not going to vote for. Then I gave her the story. And I want to tell you the story that I gave her. And I want everybody here to listen to the story in detail. Because it is something, first of all, credibility is very important. And if I go out there and I promote all these progressive values and then constantly say, what I'm going to do is just go for the best alternative, and realize that what occurs all of the times is that the best alternatives is always an alternative that leaves a hell of a lot of people behind. Because that's what we do. We leave a lot of people behind. So I look at her and I said, I can't tell my young followers that, I am voting for Biden. I need you to go vote for Biden. I said I did that during the Hillary Clinton period. After I was a Bernie Sanders delegate and Hillary Clinton became, and there are two reasons that I did it for Hillary. One is to honor my baby boomer sisters, because I understood that they wanted that to see a woman in their lifetime. And given that Bernie wasn't going to do it, I felt I owed that to my baby boomer sisters. I really do. Because, as flawed as I thought Hillary was definitely a better pick than Donald Trump, in as much as we were going to still get quite a bit of neoliberalism. But that said, I supported my sisters. I can't do the full support again for Biden by urging all those who respect my words to say, I want you to please bite your tongue and go out there and vote for Biden. And let me explain this. And for those that think, oh, Egberto, I can't believe you're saying that. Let me explain this, folks. Time and time again, those in the middle who are comfortable constantly tell the downtrodden, the young people, to please just go this time, go ahead and support this candidate. For us, we need it because it's better than the other. For whom? For you. For those people who are just okay. They are all right. They are making it. You're asking that the people who make the difference for you, the downtrodden on the left, that somehow they constantly come in your support and make life comfortable for you. Think, when have you made life comfortable for them? When have you said, I am going to bite my tongue this time, and in as much as I may not support all the things that you want me to support, they have always been there for me, and I will be there for them this time. Where is that? So I can't. I will be supporting the ticket, but and down ballot, I'm going to be fighting like hell for down ballot. Please, folks, if you're just joining us, please share. I'll be fighting like hell for those progressives that are down ballot. I'll be fighting like hell for them. But I'll just be doing what I have to do for the neoliberals. Just what I have to do. Now, here's the deal. We constantly ask these people to work with them. But you know, I wrote on Daily Kos once and I said, to many people it doesn't, whether it is Donald Trump or Biden, it doesn't matter to them because they don't see a difference. And people explode. How could you say that? That is so stupid. My God, you couldn't be saying that, Egberto. Trump is much worse than Biden. And you're right. Trump is much worse than Biden. But understand this. And this is what I try to let people understand about not being able to empathize with others. When you elect Biden, those folks that are doing just fine, do just fine. When you elect Trump, those people that are, less people that are doing just fine, do fine. But you know what? They still survive, right? But a little less do fine. But these people here in the middle, they do fine, right? When you support Biden, these people in the middle do fine. But these people over here, whether it is Biden or Trump, they're screwed. All those student loans that we have been begging the people to help us stop the pilfer, help us stop the bankers from ripping these people off, help us do it. Come on, centrists, help those people, help these kids. You want their vote, help them. For those who want Medicare for all, I have stories and stories. I had a 26-year-old woman on my show. I interviewed her. Look her up on my show, please. She got interviewed. She felt a lump in her breast at 26 years old. She goes ahead and she's working, but she doesn't have health care. But guess what? She got another job, and that other job is starting in 2 or 3 months, so she's going to hold on with that lump till she finds out that she has health care with the big company that she got on with afterwards. So she holds on, and she goes, and oh my God, it is a lump that has grown bigger. You see, I see these things. I hear these stories. I can empathize with these stories. I see what real people are going through on that side. And when you continue to ask them, come on, support the centrists, help us out. You are constantly saying, help this group out. These people here will just be fine. What about them? To them, whether it's Biden or Trump, they lose. You may lose if it's Trump, but if you want their help, support them. I mean, with Bernie or Elizabeth, everybody wins. Why can't you see that? You may pay a little more in taxes. You may pay a little bit more money here and there. Think about it, people. Stop asking, it is, to put it blunt, it is rather selfish to constantly ask those, support the ticket. So they don't get their Medicare for all. So they don't get their student loan forgiveness. So they don't get their tuition-free college. So they don't get their family leave. So they don't get their subsidized health care for their children, even as things cost more. And we, as those people that are older, were able to go to school at a much lesser cost. They didn't. So it costs them more. And who takes up the bank? Oh, the banks are willing to give them the money so that they are enslaved for the rest of their lives. And who's there to help them? Tell me. Everybody makes deals. When is the center going to make the deal with the left and say, for once and for all? I wrote an article for Daily Kos where I said, usually the center never has to worry about the left helping. But will the center ever support policies that help the left, that help those people that are downtrodden? Will they ever say, you know what? Yes, it may cost us a little bit more. Yes, that bonus that corporation would give may not be as high. Yes. But how many people did we save? I give my personal story of my daughter getting a stroke and having been in ICU for 3 days. I sat in a chair for 3 days. I slept in a chair for 3 days in ICU because I don't trust the American medical system. Okay? I sat in that chair for all this time. And, well, she's doing a lot better now. She goes home. And then the bills start to roll in. And she gets the 3 days that she was in ICU, she gets a bill. Folks, if you're just joining us, please share. Please share these programs. It is so important that other people understand what is going on in this system. And this happens to do, I want to jump to the coronavirus and say how it's going to create the depression in a little bit. But I got off on this tangent with the support issues. But, so, as it turns out, folks, as it turns out, she gets a $72,000 bill. And she has insurance with the school. She's a med student, but she's going to be responsible for a certain part of it. And I told her, beautiful daughter of mine, love you very much. Please, do not pay that bill. Accumulate all those bills and send them to me. So I am going to make a case out of it. I'm going to publicize what our healthcare system really looks like. My daughter, when she went to med school, she said, you know, Dad, I am not going to be a rich doctor. You know why? I said, why, babe? She says, because what I want to do is I want to work in the places, I want to go work in areas that that is neglected. Those areas that are neglected, that's what I want to do. I want to support people. Well, you know, when she gets out of college, I want to see her hold on to that. She's going to be $500,000 in debt, and then with this, having gotten a stroke and these bills, even more. Will she be able to do the right thing? You know, so we have all these realities that we have to think about. So please, for all my brothers and sisters that are so against Bernie or Elizabeth because they want to give free stuff. It's not free stuff. It's pay it forward stuff. Had my daughter had Medicare for all, had my daughter had tuition-free college to be a doctor, something that we're having shortages of right now, she would be off on her way to go into any indigent part of this country that needs a good doctor to support them. So I want you to realize what you're asking for. Folks, remember to stay positive. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.